Hello, today I'm starting a new series on Jupiter through the houses. So I'm going to go through Jupiter's, because obviously it's the most benevolent of all planets. So I'm going to go through all the indications just so that we can learn a little bit more about it. And then we go through for the different ascendants. And so Jupiter is obviously Jiva Karaka, the very first thing, and that is the planet of vitality and life, basically. So it's the most benefic of all planets, and the ruler of the natural ninth and 12th house of the zodiac. So Sagittarius and Pisces are ruled by Jupiter. They're completely different there in their feeling. Jupiter in the ninth house will be more for pilgrimage, education, higher education, doctorates, master's degrees, justice, law, culture. It's a trinal house, and it's all those kind of Sagittarius, much more focused, much more preaching, religious, knowledgeable, and high wisdom. In Pisces, it's much more optimistic, much more letting go, much more to do with the vision of the bigger picture, making things very spiritual, and travel. Both of them actually has of travel, both ninth and 12th house. Ninth house is obviously more like pilgrimage, where you go and come back. So you might go either for religious reasons or for education when it's activated, and you will return home. And so let's have a look at the kind of things to do with that. It's obviously a planet of morals, courtesy, and devotion. And it's open-minded, spiritual. And Jupiter is also the significator of natural houses, second house, fifth, ninth and 11th house of the zodiac. So by that I mean that it rules house of family, wealth, values, opportunities, children, obviously, with fifth house and everything, luck, happiness, growth, education, travel, and knowledge. It's the significator of teachers and role models that we attract. People who guide us through life and help us to actually put us on our path, our dharma, and give us knowledge and higher knowledge. It's also the significator of children, which is our most creative part of a human being, and is obviously creations and being creative, and all of that is very massive part of human life, really. It's also like when we got a really good fifth house, all things to do with the fifth house are really magical to us. It's so creative, and it's so willing to be self-sacrificing and devotional towards our child. It's very romantic. It's really rules like the physical heart, like Leo, that kind of thing. So it's just pretty outstanding, really. And they are like our biggest blessings of life, and our commitments to them is highly vibrational in the biggest scheme of things. So the energy we put into them help us increase the strength of our fifth house. It's also the significator of husband material. So a woman can be, or a man can, attraction will be like Mars. Obviously Venus for heterosexuals, the more gay couples Mars is still the attraction. But Mars obviously what we'll be attracted to, but Jupiter will be the husband material. So it's very different when a woman chooses to set up home with somebody than somebody who is just like looking good, just like thinking, are they going to be reliable when I have be set up home and have children. So Jupiter will, a really good Jupiter in somebody's female's chart will indicate that they want to have a partner for life, so they can bring and support their child, be very committed to the family. Jupiter rules the northeast of properties, generally speaking, in Vastu, and it's the condition of the chart. It shows the optimism and happiness of the person. So whether or not somebody can look at their situation like glass half full or glass half empty, and that's how their approach to life is really. So, but the good thing is, obviously, even if you have got a difficult Jupiter in your chart, with transits, we always get, even if it's not a good planet for you, I think it's much more blissful when it's in transit. And also with different dashas, it kind of really helps to activate that that Jupiter for the better. Excuse me, they're just checking my internet. So obviously the planet of opportunities, wherever it goes in the chart, you have that premise there of opportunities and situations occurring that the Jupiter will help you achieve, so you can tap into that. Jupiter is friendly with the Sun, Moon, Mars and Ketu. It's enemies with Mercury and Venus, and neutral towards Saturn. It spends roughly about a year in any sign, but it does retrograde back too during that time. But generally speaking, it takes 12 years to go around your chart, so 12-year cycle. So when you have a Jupiter return, that is 12 years have gone by. And it's a sign that allows you to explore the indications of the house and gives you opportunities, with its transits. It's exalted in Cancer at 5 degrees, the home of family, early education, nurture and stability, and love of homeland. It's debilitated at 5 degrees of Capricorn, which is sign of strive, climbing the ladder, ambition, government structure, and wanting more and more. And Motrikona is Sagittarius, 0 to 10 degrees in Mula Nakshatra, where you get to the bottom of things, build yourself a really firm foundation, and then build on that. That's what really Jupiter is best at, really. Just like, it's not a credit card, it is to do with wealth, but it's not a credit card type of wealth. It's not like Rahu. It's a type of money that gives you pleasure. So it's not necessarily always like extravagant in that sense. It's very much like build really good foundations and then have the focus, and having focus for that because of Sagittarius. Jupiter is a planet that gives you the big picture, philosophy, travel, culture and luck, happiness and wisdom, religion and spiritualities and other realms, charity. And because it's exalted in the fourth house of the natural zodiac, charity begins at home and a homeland first, and that will make you really happy. And women, especially mothers who are mothering a child, nursing a child. In Sagittarius, as I said, is focused and righteous, preaching and committed to goal-oriented and religious. In Pisces, it's open-minded, big-hearted, creative, more forgiving, bigger picture, and more spiritual rather than religious. Okay, so wherever it's kind of wherever it sits in your chart, it kind of protects that house and protects 7 houses from it by aspect, but it's got special aspects, 5th and 9th house, so a trinal one as well. So 5th house is from it. You also include the house that's sitting in. So if it's in your 1st house, aspects the 5th, 7th and 9th house. Gets directional strength in the 1st house. It's obviously in the, you can imagine it's high consciousness and high awareness spirituality, happy-go-lucky, that kind of thing. It's amazing. It's also, when it's in good condition, it can be really open-minded and tolerant, forward-looking, forward-thinking, positive and optimistic. Makes a fantastic advisor. All of these things that I'm saying, if it's in good condition, helps to move you forward. It kind of rules bankers, financiers, economists, judges, lawyers, generals. What else can I say about it? Spiritual advisors, professors, teachers, those kind of jobs, and justice. And it's also obviously rules justice, law, morals, ethics, universal law, social justice, and also it can be very idealistic and moralistic as well, because it is, you'll find that no planet is 100% brilliant, really, so there's always things going on. It is planet of joy and expansion, so the transit of that can have similar effects. Expansion, particularly if it's in the first house or aspect in the first house, but definitely, it's a first house. So respect and tolerance, affluence is all the other things that you can say about it. It rules fat, liver, high cholesterol, and edema when you actually get water retention. It rules Thursdays, color yellow or mustard, and it also rules yellowy kind of diamonds and citron gems as well. Obviously it rules Thursdays. It's debilitated, we said, in Capricorn at 5 degrees, but it's also it's not happy in Mercury signs. Mercury and Jupiter together, because they're both planets of teaching, learning, I should say, really, because obviously Jupiter is planet of very much to do with learning and publishing, because of the 9th house. Mercury is very much like information. Mercury can be gossipy, and fast information. But whereas like Jupiter is more like wisdom and high knowledge, that kind of thing. So this is the reason why it feels a little bit nervous in those sort of, it can be a little bit like, because obviously it expands everything, and Mercury can be very sort of multi-talented. It can like give you too much of everything, so it can be a little bit exhausting. So that's why it creates problems when it's in Mercury and nakshatras, Mercury signs, being aspected with Mercury or conjunct with Mercury, because it's just like so much information, whereas like the focus goes out of Jupiter and becomes too much into everything. And obviously because it's a planet of judgment as well, so it can be a bit judgmental about those things. So I find that, like if you it almost creates problems with learning, actually. So like for example, Jupiter in Purva Bhadrapada can be like it finds it really difficult sometimes learning, but but it could be that it's much more of like a visual learner rather than theoretical, because it kind of overdoes things, and the person could be like constantly wanting to learn, and particularly in certain nakshatras and things like that, it can really give you that like, oh, I want to learn so much, but you don't really absorb the information. It's just about going through it, but not necessarily absorbing the information or application of the information. Obviously not friendly with Libra, because they're both planets benefics, but Jupiter is much more like discerning. It's kind of what it is actually. Jupiter is much more it's a little bit judgmental, whereas Venus is not judgmental. It's a teacher to everybody. It's not going to judge you in a sense that you think, oh, you come from a poor background, you come from, that kind of, your family's got money or anything like that, or maybe your family's religious or atheist. Whereas Jupiter can be a little bit more choosy about who they actually spend their time with. So you can definitely see that. Jupiter and Venus are quite an interesting one as well. So Jupiter, Venus, or Jupiter in Venus houses, it can give dissatisfaction as well, because there's always like, oh, I could, particularly in love, because Venus is planet of love. So with Venus, it can just get like, oh, it can be like, the person could be a really, really nice guy or nice lady, and they're just like, oh no, but they just did that wrong. They could be a little bit like that too. So yeah, it's interesting. So we need to like rein it in a sense. If Jupiter is in the fourth house as well, so it gives you luxurious homes and luxurious cars and things like that, because wherever it is, it's bigger than normal. That's definitely the focus. So these are the things to do with Jupiter. As I said, it's got directional strength in the first house, so it gives the person much more focus, a jovial personality, and fun to be with. I have an uncle of mine. I don't know his chart, but I can bet you bottom dollar that he has got Jupiter in the first house, because he's always struggled with his weight, and he is quite expansive. Midriff region, and he's just very fun to be with. He's just got that lovely, I wouldn't say, because sense of humor is much more to do with Mercury, but it's just the happiness, sharing, like, and whenever we used to go out, as a family and everything, we would stop more often than normal to eat or drink something, and he wants everybody to have fun. So that is very much Jupiter. And I think I did say, but it does rule, Jupiter rules Thursdays. So Jupiter, obviously, just wanted to say that we all get to have a go at Jupiter in the first house at some point, hopefully, if the dashas line up, Mahadasha's planetary periods occur. And definitely in transits too. So there's this. So, but also have a look at other Vargas or divisional charts. In Vedic astrology, there are plenty of them. And have a look and see what condition your Jupiter is in different Vargas. And obviously, if Jupiter, you're going through a Jupiter dasha or subdasha, but particularly if you're going to the main Mahadasha of Jupiter, you can have a look and see in different Vargas if it is in the ascendant of any of those, because they also get activated with that too. It rules 3 nakshatras, Purnavasu, which is Jupiter nakshatras are always between two signs. So it's between Gemini and the first 3 degrees 20 of Cancer. So last 10 degrees of Gemini, 20 to 30 degrees, and first 3 degrees 20 of Cancer. And then also the last 10 degrees of Libra, and the first 3 degrees 20 of Scorpio. So that's Libra and Scorpio. And then also rules last 10 degrees, and that nakshatra in between Libra and Scorpio is called Vishaka. And then we have also Purva Bhadrapada, which is the last 10 degrees, so 20 degrees to 30 degrees of Aquarius, and first 3 degrees 20 of Pisces. So these are the 3 nakshatras. So with the dasha, those 3 nakshatras will get activated. And so what else do I want to say? Yeah, so just remember that, so we all get a little bit of a go at, during those dashas. And also, just wanted to also say that everything that I'm saying is for a Jupiter that has got, I'm not considering any kind of conjunctions or aspects, just purely the house placements. Jupiter in the 8th house. I'm just going to go through indications of the 8th house, because obviously this is a Dushtana house, and therefore it's a difficult position. But in the natural zodiac, Jupiter is friendly towards Mars, who rules Scorpio, which is the natural 8th house, and also friendly. It deals okay with Ketu, which is the co-ruler of this house. So, and this will be 8th house is 12th houses to the 9th house. So in a sense, you can see how it can over time get better. It's not an upachaya house, but I just think that it gives you the resources, because 8th house is research, and wherever Jupiter sits, it's able to get the information, expands that. So these people can be quite good at getting the necessary information and self-help in order to move themselves out of the murkiness, if you like, or the emotional entanglements of this house. Anyway, let's give you the indications for this house. This is obviously the house of sudden changes that you just do not expect. So your fortunes in any which way can just change just like that. And it is good for people who've got any planets in the 8th house not to hold on and just be afraid of change, because we have to all embrace change. Otherwise, we're just going to end up leaving this world the same way we came in. So we have to embrace change. And change, on the whole, it's progress. Even if it's like you go through difficult periods, it's still at the end we learn something, and the experience enriches us. So it's obviously the house of accidents, astrology, the occults, divorce, scandals, surgery, sudden windfall or sudden loss. So you can go either way. Psychotherapy, self-help, psychology, healing, supernatural abilities like mediumship, clairvoyancy, that kind of thing. It's a house that you want to kind of keep exploring. It's like it's basically awareness of hidden things and going deep into stuff. House of sex, I think I already said scandals, control, manipulation, keeping, emotions, teaches self-control, if you like, because of the control they want to have. Self-empowerment as well. And so these are some of the themes of this house. It's house of in-laws as well, and house of obviously sexual relations, that kind of thing too. And this is also holding on to resentment, taboos, mysteries, chemistry, sexual chemistry, spying on others. It is also a house of secret societies, secret groups. House of it's kind of house that you have no control over, because it can just things change, roller coaster times. It's house of paranoia, trust issues, good and bad, bondage, intimacy, psychological healing, that kind of thing. So these are all things to do with that. So this is now in the natural zodiac. Jupiter rules the 9th house and the 12th house. So when it goes into the 8th house, you can see from there, obviously from the 8th house is aspecting 2nd house of family. And wherever it's looking, it's going to also make changes, sudden changes to that. Actually, I forgot to say, it's also house of taxes and insurance as well, and an inheritance. And also from there, it's also aspecting 12th house and 4th house too, by its trinal aspect. So you can see that there could be changes in your home environment, 4th house, your security, and 4th house is cars as well. So this is house of accidents now, aspecting your 4th house. So you need to be aware that whenever you actually drive in, to just be completely aware of the of the traffic, your environment. It also means that you would change your home quite frequently. And that could be quite sudden. This could happen to people whose parent, say your father is in the forces, and then suddenly dad comes home to say, actually, you need to pack up because I have a secondment, I have a job, blah blah, overseas. So you don't have to take off and go. It also shows that the environment of mum, or mum's psychological feelings. So obviously, the mother could have also had some difficulties too. The home environment could have been quite fragile growing up, because obviously, it's early environments, and so early education. So you want to also be aware that you might have gone through some difficulties, but so could have your mum as well. And Jupiter obviously expands all of that too. And so we need to be just aware that, it can kind of expand all the good things and all the bad things of eighth house. And we have to learn to navigate through that by learning from the experiences. It's also aspecting your second house of family. So, and values, also your savings. So there could be like that kind of thing can change. So you could suddenly have quite a lot of money and suddenly lose that money because there's an expense coming up, because also rules 12th house. There's, you kind of think that, I think I remember actually going through a period like this. It wasn't to do with Jupiter, but in the transit, I had a planet. Actually, it might have been Jupiter. Yeah, it might have been Jupiter. Yeah. But where it happened was like the money that I had saved to put an extension on our home. And I had been saving, me and my husband had been saving for a long time, and we had all this money, and all of a sudden we had this situation where completely out of our hands, and we had a massive bill, and that period where we were just like literally had booked the builder and got the local authorities to come and give the okay, that just didn't happen because something else happened and completely out of our control, so the money was gone. Suddenness. I mean, obviously some people are lucky because they don't have the money and all of a sudden they get the money, which is like happy days. So, but that wasn't what happened to us. It was completely the opposite way. So yeah, and don't think that, it's always going to be like for worse. I mean, obviously the situation with Jupiter is important because Jupiter will be doing better in certain houses, if it's a own sign, friendly sign particularly. I think when it's exalted or debilitated, exaltation also can either be really, really good or really, really difficult as well, because it's like the extreme of something. But certainly if it's debilitated, if it's in an enemy sign, the feelings behind the changes could be so difficult. So we have to work with that kind of thing. So as I said, it's a Dushtana house, and we now have a benefic planet sitting in there. And Dushtana houses do need a malefic to help that situation. And always remember that this is not necessarily for life. The feeling will be always behind it, but every dasha, your chart changes. So your ascendant becomes from the ruler of that dasha, the planet that rules that dasha. Excuse me. So obviously, secret house of Scorpio being the basic sort of flavor of this. So this could be obviously you have now where you've got like the house of sex, and this is like Jupiter expanding it. So people can actually, before getting married, they could actually be seeing each other secretly, and then they reveal. This also could be the opposite way. They could be married and suddenly people find out that you have been having an affair, because not the 8th house and 12th house, both of them are secret houses. And this Jupiter actually expands that. It doesn't necessarily mean with everyone. And this is also, the people could also travel, because 12th house is travel with their secret society, secret cults, whatever, because it's also a house of like psychotherapy, healing, that kind of thing, astrology. So you could go to ashrams and spend money on going away to distant lands for learning more about astrology, Ayurveda, healing, psychic ability, yoga, that kind of thing. So that could be what you spend money on. There's definitely something secret about it, absolutely, particularly because Jupiter just expands that. It's also secret, not just secret cults, but it's secret communities too. And this could also be like somebody who's because 12th house of other dimensions and realms. So this could be this person through sleep and through the abilities that they have. They can actually get messages from other realms and things like that. So that could also be a theme. If the 10th house ruler is also in this situation, because 8th house is also to do with surgeries. So you could end up having like a sudden, have an accident, have surgery. But if it's your 10th house ruler is, or 6th house ruler is also involved in this, then it means that you could possibly be like a doctor or a surgeon, that kind of thing as well. But certainly, they'll have special gifts, these people, because they'll be able to intuition really kicks in and expands intuition, because 12th house is intuition. So that, and it could be something that the whole family has the gift, the mother has the gift and passes it on to the child. So that could certainly be the thing too. And the person obviously has got a lot of secret knowledge too, and they probably don't. They might even withhold it from their spouse. But there's certainly they like to give money to charities. They could kind of they could waste money in a sense as well, because Jupiter can, if it's not in good condition, aspect in the 12th and the 2nd house, that could really cause issues with money situation too. But then again, it could then change too, for because of the suddenness. 8th house is also house of research, so they'd be very good at research. They're constantly researching. They can do a lot of once they tackle and master the because 8th house is a house that you have to master, because it's deep, and it has a lot of murkiness about it. So the more you kind of research and work through all these nooks and crannies and everything, all these emotional things that hold you back, you become very good at advising people. For example, you get a lot of knowledge to get yourself out of situations where you can actually get the information, discern it, and take yourself away from it too. So I think it's a situation where it will be a little bit difficult, but it gets better. It also makes the person very spiritual too, because basically it's the moksha trine is actually activated with Jupiter, and if Jupiter is in a good position, they use that information that they get through, or the what the messages they receive, listening to their intuition, and just being very discerning. They can use the information to move themselves away from all the nonsense of the world, and become quite spiritual. Not religious, but spiritual for sure. It's also because in the natural zodiac, it's a 9th house ruler in the 8th house. So they could just be like, they either have a really, really good education, or there could be breaks in the education too. And that, or they could also travel abroad for their education, because it's a 9th house ruler, going into the 8th house, and that 8th house is that aspect in 4th and 12th house. And that education can create expenses, but like anything, they it's in the end, it just tallies itself out. And definitely they do well if you have this placement. It's really good to not just throw your money at any charity, and really get the information just to make sure, because just see where, look at the accounts for big charities. You'll be better really being connected with the charity, so the charity actually helps your community, local community, rather than the larger thing. All these like you go to pay for on PayPal for something, and it says donate £1 to this, and people always think, oh, I've done the charitable thing, and 50 million people give to this, and that 50 million or 5 billion or something does not even go to the people of that country. So always research it to just make sure this is a really good thing that Jupiter will give you, because it's planet of wisdom, and whatever happens, even if it's difficult at early age, eventually, this is knowledge, higher knowledge, wisdom, and it helps you. And don't forget also that Jupiter is, at the end of the day, planet of optimism. So whatever happens with these houses, eventually things will work out. It's just the way it is. So, and it just gives you like optimism eventually to just thinking, I can tackle the change, I can go with the flow, and that will just make everything much more concrete, much more, happy and experience, if you like. Okay, just going to look at the ascendants now. For Aries ascendant, this is like 9th and 12th house ruler in the 8th house. So this is obviously a trinal lord going into the 8th house. So it can be a little bit difficult. It could be issues with that could be unavailable. Definitely can be breaks in your education, in the sense that basically the father could have been either unavailable or working abroad, or something like, maybe you didn't know your dad growing up. And it could also be that you had like a stepfather who was like looked after you growing up as well, because the 12th house being foreign land. So it could be foreign, it doesn't necessarily mean a foreign, from a different country, but a different type of dad, like a stepdad or something. For Taurus ascendant, this will be, and actually just wanted to say for Aries ascendant, this is not necessarily it'd be a little bit difficult in the sense, but Jupiter is in Scorpio and is friendly with Mars, so it's absolutely fine. And also this is from there, Jupiter will be aspect in the 12th house, so it will look after your expenses. You'll be more discerning, much more use like your wisdom, high knowledge to do the the expenditures and things like that. So it will be much more spiritual as well. For Taurus ascendant, this is 8th house and 12th house ruler. In the 8th house, so Jupiter will be in own sign, nice and strong, and it's also because it's a natural 9th house of the zodiac, so the person will spend a lot of time researching all kind of spiritual things, all information. They would just like literally they probably can self-educate too by reading through everything, because that they seek truth, because it's this is like Sagittarius is house of truth, so yeah, there will be literally research in that. But it is a nice placement just purely because of that reason, because it rules the 8th house and protects everything to do with the 8th house. So it could be that you have nice in-laws, you have sudden gains and things like that, because also rules the 11th house of gains and stuff like that. So and you'll have within your groups of friends, you will also be experiencing like you could have like groups, and you could be part of a cult, or oh gosh, I hope it's not a bad one. And secret sort of like groups and everything, maybe astrology groups, let's put it that way. And you gain through that, that you guys help each other out with that kind of thing. But there could also be changes as well within these groups, and sudden changes in you gain suddenly and lose too. But generally speaking, it's more cushioned because Jupiter rules the 8th house and is sitting there protecting it. For a Gemini ascendant, Jupiter rules 7th and 10th house. This is a situation where kind of when it goes into the 8th house, Jupiter will be debilitated. So it could obviously show like a divorce. It could also show like a situation where you were seeing each other before you got married, that kind of thing. And also because this is a natural 10th house of the zodiac, and it's Jupiter is sitting there, so it just could be that this person could be dealing with things like insurance, jobs in insurance, taxes, accountancy to do with tax accounts, things like that. But there's definitely could be like a something secretive about the job in a sense too, and also there could be things about your partner's money or in-laws' money that you don't know. There could be some secrets going on there because obviously Jupiter is debilitated. There's those things that you don't know. But your job could be secret. You could be like a spy. You could be government spy, tax evasion spy, that kind of people who do like Interpol, things like that. So there could be something of that description. Yeah, so let's see. For Cancer Ascendant, Jupiter in the 8th house will be Jupiter in Aquarius, and Jupiter rules 6th and 9th house. So there could definitely be issues with father's health. It could be that there's things about your dad you don't know, secrets about dad. It could definitely be like some issues to do with education and gurus as well, and teachers, some issues with them. And Jupiter ruling the 6th house, going into the 8th house, this also creates like a Viparit Raja Yoga in a sense, where through difficulties, ups and downs and turmoil, then you gain, and that gain could be a good gain. It could be that you suddenly come to loads of money, suddenly your situation at work changes and becomes better. It could definitely be somebody who works in medicine as well, because obviously just the houses that Jupiter will be aspect in. It could be like hospitals. It could be a surgeon, doctor, emergency things. 8th house is emergency, ambulance worker, that kind of thing. Then for Leo Ascendant, Jupiter in the 8th house, Jupiter will be in own sign, which is Pisces, rules the 5th and 8th house in the 8th house. So this is a nice and strong Jupiter. It'll be 5th house ruler in the 8th house. So you could have secret investments. You could be teaching students occults, psychotherapy, healing, astrology, that kind of thing. And it could also be that, because it rules the 5th house in the 8th house, it could be that there could be like issues kind of getting pregnant, having children, that kind of thing could be the problem with the child can get poorly. But because Jupiter is in good condition, it can also give you the tools to look after it, do the research and get to the answers. For Virgo Ascendant, this is 4th and 7th house ruler in the 8th house, which is Aries. So Jupiter is in friendly sign, but obviously it just could mean that issues like with car, with mum, early family situation could have been a little bit difficult. It could also mean that there could be like sudden ups and downs in the marriage, in the partnerships, things like that, and or even a divorce. Like it could be a little bit of scandal, something you find something secret about your mum or your partner, something like that could be the issue. Then for Libra Ascendant, Jupiter in the 8th house will be Jupiter in Taurus. So not a friendly sign, and Jupiter is not a good planet for them. It's 3rd and 6th house ruler. It does get better with time because they're Upachaya houses. When it goes into the 8th house, it just could mean that, it could definitely mean that somebody is actually, there could be, because 3rd and 6th house, when they're connected with each other, is to do. I see that sometimes people really work hard and start their own work, their own business, and in the 8th house, so they could actually be like a tax or inheritance lawyer, something like that, and they could deal with divorce, litigations, that kind of thing. They could also be do secretive job. Secret communication. They could be a spy on the thing. So, but they could also be again, this could be to do because Pisces is medics and 8th house is emergency, so they could be emergency doctor where they use their hands and things. for that. But it could also be that through, you could lose friends through poor communication and that kind of thing. So they need to be a bit more, or they need to kind of working on the communication will really help these natives. And they also the other thing is as well, they could also be quite expressive too, because third house ruler is in the in Taurus. Taurus is quite an expressive, quite an artistic thing. So as a sort of like secretive thing, they might actually do like singing groups or some sort of endeavors they don't want to actually reveal to other people. Then for Scorpio ascendant, this is second and fifth house ruler. In the eighth house will be Jupiter in Gemini. So Gemini is not a good sign for Jupiter. However, it's actually blessing the second house because this rules Sagittarius. So this again could be like some issues with family, with children, maybe money, that kind of thing. But definitely the family could have some secret money. There could be some secret investments going on, because fifth house is that investments, shares, that kind of thing. And the in-laws could also have some secretive things going on, in terms of investments and in that kind of thing. And also Gemini is naturally a stock market, so they could have these kind of different types of, because it expands it, different types of investments that they have, stocks and shares and bonds and things like that. For Sagittarius ascendant, Jupiter rules first and fourth house. In the eighth house will be Jupiter, which is exalted. So this is the person who is kind of really lives abroad, because obviously Cancer is overseas. It could be somebody who's there are some definitely could be secrets about their early childhood. It could be somebody there's stuff about their mum that they but it's all good though, because Jupiter is in good condition there. But certainly they might have a secret home, secret stash of money, that kind of thing. And somebody who's very, very much into psychology, psychotherapy, and also Jupiter is aspect in the fourth house. So this gives like a large home, happy home, many homes maybe, and maybe homes abroad, because fourth house is also overseas, faraway lands. But they could definitely gain money or inheritance through the mother or in-laws, that kind of thing. But there'll be a lot of changes in themselves, in the sense that they have to deal with a lot of changes in their life. Their life could be, but it's in good condition, so that they go with the changes. And this is a movable sign, so they're not going to be like they can deal with that issues quite well as time goes by, particularly. For Capricorn ascendant, Jupiter rules third and 12th house, so not a good planet for them. When it goes in the 8th house, actually is probably not a bad thing, because it goes into Leo. It's in good dignity there. And because it's a difficult planet for them, when it's 12th house ruler in the 8th house, creates like a Viparit Raj Yoga, where through losses, sudden changes of fortune, that kind of thing, eventually they gain and they become braver, and they kind of take their communication gets better. They don't lose energy and lose friends, and they reconnect better with their communication skills with friends and siblings and colleagues and things. But that they have to go through that difficulty in order to just gain from the situation. And the better and braver they come at actually expressing themselves and connecting more with friends and everything else, the more they uplift the 8th house. For Aquarius ascendant, this is 2nd and 11th house ruler when it goes into the 8th house. So this is the money-making planet going to the 8th house. So the money can be, and money, friends and things to do with the family, they're always like up and down. There's always sudden changes and gains. It could be like massive gains too. And from there, obviously, Jupiter, when it's in the 8th house, for the Aquarius ascendant, will be aspecting the 2nd house. So they will be able to, actually, they learn that they have to save money, and that Jupiter protects the family money, family values and savings. So in that sense, it's pretty good. But there could be changes, gain a lot, lose a lot, and then eventually they learn to save and do the right thing. Then for Pisces ascendant, Jupiter rules 1st and 10th house. When it goes into the 8th house, Jupiter will be not in a very good position, because it'll be in Libra. So the job is secretive. It could be a secret person in the army, secret kind of, it could be a lot of different things. So these people could be maybe even their coach. They could be a healer, advisor, secret, because Jupiter is also the general, so they could be in the secret service. They could deal with a lot of mediation within the army or within the companies where they're liquidating companies. They could come in and actually deal with that side of things. They could be dealing with taxes, insurance, inheritances, wills, that kind of thing. So that's it. Have a good day, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.